Hello, and welcome to the Warrant Committee. Today is August 25th, 2025. Karen, can you call roll?
I can. We have Terry, Macy. Macy, do you believe is there? Nicole?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
Elaine?
Here.
Jansley? Lorraine?
Yes.
Grace? Mary? Andrew?
Yes.
Julia?
Here.
Brian?
Here.
Is Lee Michael there? No. Ron? Nicholas?
Yep. Yes.
Cecile? Here. Okay, you have a quorum.
And I don't know if you got Larry, who not a lot of people may have been able to meet in person.
I did not, but I've got him now. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm going to share my screen briefly with a semblance of the agenda for tonight. Okay, there it is. It's not pretty, but it'll do. So we had people assigned to their various fall town meeting articles, and we've scheduled for 4 or 5, depending how you count them, to report back tonight. Some have been able to bring speakers in. Some speakers have not been able to come in. So what I'm putting up here is a timeline, which is aspirational. We might hit it, we might not, but sort of a goal of, maybe 20 to 30 minutes for each article, see how far we can get, and see what we can get done. I'm grouping I've got fines and light trespasses, 2 different items, but they're, I think, going to be very intertwined. So I've got those grouped on the screen. And sort of what I'm imagining, and if people want to take this a different direction, they can. But I'm thinking for each one, the Warrant Committee experts and maybe an outside expert who's in, if they're here, can give an overview of the article. And then I'd ask the Warrant Committee experts, what questions did you have? Because you've all done some background information gathering. What questions did you have looking into this? What answers did you find? And then I do want to open it up a bit to what other Warrant Committee members have. We might get through them. Otherwise, maybe the goal is to raise questions tonight, take those away, and the experts can come back with answers at a later date if needed. And then, and I don't know if this will happen tonight for any of the articles we're talking about, but the ultimate question is, do we have a full enough understanding of the issue to, as a Warrant Committee, to present it to town meeting with our recommendation? And if so, are we ready to vote on it? I don't know if we'll get there tonight, but that's the ultimate goal. Elaine, were you raising your hand or?
No.
Oh, okay. So that's how I'm seeing this. Again, 30 minutes per issue. I don't know if we'll hit that, but that's my goal. So let's start right out. So the first one on the agenda is the Climate Action Plan. And I'll stop sharing my screen. We do not have the guest who's sponsoring the Climate Action Plan here, Alexander Hasha. He has confirmed he can be here on the 15th, which is 3 weeks from now. So I think we'll get a more thorough presentation from him, but I still think it would be a good use of our time to, Andrew, you looked into this.
I did.
Can you, take it away.
James Lee and I were supposed to have scheduled a call together with Alex Hasha. I wasn't able to get in touch with James Lee, but I did keep the call scheduled last Friday, the 22nd, and Alex and I had a nice conversation. There are 2 questions that, Jay, I know you were hoping to have answered. One, what would the town be committing to, and what would the town be entitled to? I was able to ask those questions. And the genesis of this particular proposal or warrant article was that in I hope I get this correctly, my notes are accurate enough, but the CAPC, which I believe is a Climate Action Preparedness Committee, was charged in 2023 to align the town's climate-related goals with that of Massachusetts. Massachusetts, roughly the net standard that they're targeting is to be net zero by 2050. And for those of you not verbose in climate action plans, net zero is essentially being carbon neutral or producing, using no net energy relative to sort of the impact or energy the town may be producing. The current Massachusetts standard has legally binding goals in 2030 and 2040, in addition to that 2050 target. And the reason I bring that up is that by aligning and adopting this plan, we would, and just to be clear, not legally binding, but I want to get clarification on it, but be committing to best efforts in hitting similar targets. By doing so, it would entitle us to funds, two different pockets of pools of funds. One, if I understood correctly, was $150,000 per grant cycle, which is typically every 3 years, for technical assistance or consulting sort of fees, and up to $1 million in project funding. The best description that Alex was able to give me is that this is the Green Communities 2.0 type proposal, essentially in addition to the residential targets that were established several years ago in terms of energy efficiency standards. This is sort of expanding it throughout for the town, and I would get further clarification, and I'd rather defer to Alexander to get more details on that. The CAPC reports to the select board 2 times a year currently, and he said Milton is a little unusual as towns typically have an article with specific climate goals targeted in there, unlike the current verbiage of the Warrant article. The select board suggested that the CAPC bring forth an article that reflects the language that is presented in today's version or the latest version of the article. He said the framework is voluntary, it's not compulsory, and he is looking for engagement and attention from the town staff, and wants an article that has a little bit more teeth, because the town tends to be very reactive, and unless there are specific targets and specific language, it's sort of a squeaky wheel gets the grease type situation. He has, from a due diligence standpoint, went to school's facilities meeting, spoken to several towns, including Amherst, Lexington, and that there are 20 towns currently that are signed up with the DOE-ER program, the Climate Leaders Community Program, which is essentially what this article would have us be signing, getting on board with. One of the things that I had suggested was to get real great clarity and a little bit more clarity in the language in terms of what we are committing to and what we are putting best efforts forward in. I don't have the article in front of me, but the only article that had a specific target or goal in mind was, if my recollection was the last one, which would have the town commit to looking at alternative fuel vehicles, and where replacements are possible. And there is some slight qualifying language that I would like to make sure that ensures that we're able to, if we were to adopt this, which at face value seems to make sense, that we have flexibility in terms of the timing of when those vehicles are replaced as part of a regular capital project recycling maintenance schedule. And two, that economics gives us a reasonable out, meaning that if there's some unreasonable premium on alternative fuel vehicles or an electric vehicle, that we not be bound to having to replace it for financial reasons. And so I think the questions that I would suggest that we focus on are really the cost impacts, including having an understanding of what the adjacent costs are, such as facilities management, not facilities management, but the vehicle maintenance crew, are they capable? Do we have the infrastructure of maintaining electric vehicles, or is that going to require a series of training and all kinds of capital equipment, et cetera, and that that the framework truly is voluntary and not compulsory, given the current financial state of the town itself, and likely aversion to anything that results in any material increases in cost expenditures. So he would like to propose something that measures progress on a 5-year basis rather than 10-year targets, and measure progress. I guess, yes, 5 years is something that he came up with, not something that is in an existing standard in either the Climate Leader Communities program or any other program. He thought it was some reasonable number. I suggested that there be very, 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 very clear language in the article itself in terms of, again, outlining the costs and obligations. I think, again, face value, it seems to make sense that we want to be conscious of how the town uses energy and its impact on climate, and that we make smart financial decisions that make sense in the timing that we're comfortable, not necessarily ones that fits a rigid timetable. So to the extent that we can tease that out and get them to commit to putting language that gives us that level of comfort, I think the article makes sense, at least based on the conversation that I had with him.
Does anyone have responses, questions, comments?
Can I just clarify? So really the only change that the town is making is a commitment to purchasing electric vehicles?
Well, that is one of, and let me find the article itself. There are a number of components to it.
I've got it in front of me, if it's helpful. It says that we would direct the select board to adopt community-wide greenhouse gas emissions reduction goals in alignment with the limits set by Massachusetts law. So a 50% reduction from 1990 levels by 2030, 75% reduction by 2040, and net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And then And then, again, this all feels very non-binding. It says Milton's Climate Action Plan recommends many such policies, in particular that the town work to achieve climate leader community certification by the Department of Energy Resources. The remaining requirements for climate leader community certification are, and one of them is adopt a zero emission vehicle first policy for new town vehicles when commercially available and practicable.
Yeah, and that language, that word practicable, from my standpoint, gave us an out in not committing to have to purchase an electric vehicle, but make best efforts to. And
Well, yeah, in some cases.
And so I agree that language that is fluffy and doesn't have us committing to anything may encourage us to keep kicking the can down the road. But I also think there is some middle ground that one measures our progress. Whether or not we're successful or not, it's important to measure, to understand, and be clear about what we're successful at and what we're failing at.
Andrew?
Yep.
Do we know what the 1990 levels are?
No idea. No, I never didn't ask.
Okay. And I wonder if that's even possible. Like, the first one is get to 50% reduction by 2030. That's like 2 years from now. I don't know, like, how can you actually, unless we're close, I would think that's not something you can just turn on and be like, let's reduce a ton of emissions tomorrow. But I would wonder, someone should be able to say, we've calculated what the emissions were in 1990 and what are we today? And there should be some glide path to say, are we even close? Or is this a joke?
I mean, the thing is it's not actually, it's describing what the law is, or what the goals are, but it's not really saying.
We'll actually do it?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of like, I hate to say it, but I wonder why it's there and all. But looking at the three bullets down the bottom, though, it's developing a plan, developing a roadmap. I mean, those are actual, real concrete things, and adopting the zero emission vehicle. What's nice about them, too, is they don't seem to really, I don't think none of them really cost anything, so.
Yeah, it's a plan to
Well,
have
I
a plan.
think-
Well, they're, and that's the other question I asked him: what sort of lift or cost is there? I specifically had asked him, if we're looking at huge consulting fees in order to achieve the goals outlined in 1, 2, and 3, then we may not have the appetite for it. Or we may if it's some modest number, but we need to be clear about that in order for us to be able to make a recommendation. So he knows in advance of his appearance next week, or he should know, because I've asked the question already, to be prepared to answer that. But there is real vagary. I mean, develop a roadmap could mean put together an outline, not necessarily a detailed plan, and we're still in compliance with that. And so I think to the extent that he can create, or the authors can have more clarity in the language in the article, the better their chance of success.
In town meeting. Yeah, I
So
agree.
some of your comments, I was a bit confused. So were you saying that Alex wishes that this article itself was more concrete, or he's saying this is more concrete than what we have currently, which is
No,
enough?
I think what he is hoping for are milestones and a framework that has more teeth to it
Within the body of this article?
within the article and the sort of actual plan. And I don't know if he meant the article itself or the framework or the roadmap.
Okay, so we don't because I'm wondering if we should expect to see significant revisions to this?
I think there has to be.
Okay.
I don't think the article as written is sufficient. I let him know that. And I told him I'm going to defer to the rest of the committee and that I'm going to let them ask questions. But personally, what I would prefer to see is a lot more clarity around what the costs are and what are we actually firmly committing to.
I think Ron's question is spot on for me, just to start with, do we even know what our 1990 levels were? I'm looking at the climate action planning page on the Milton's website. because I was wondering what this greenhouse gas inventory is, and it sounds like the town worked with consultants to prepare a comprehensive greenhouse gas inventory for the town of Milton for 2017 and 2022. And they did it in 22 retrospectively, it sounds like, for 2017, and then did it for 2022. And there was an increase of 3.6% over those 5 years. So that to me is not a great sign to begin with. But yeah, what was it in 1990? How much did we pay for that? How much would we have to pay for if we're going to do this every 5 years? And then on the flip side, does this unlock funding for us that we could use for that sort of thing that we wouldn't currently have? So.
Yeah.
See, Lee Michael?
Yeah, thanks so much. I was wondering if you could see the hands or not. It
Yes,
sounds
but
like-
feel free to speak up if I don't see you or acknowledge
Okay.
you.
It sounds like we need a lot more information on this, so I would encourage us not to spend too much more time on this discussion. But one of the pieces that I think we need to collect before the next discussion is feedback from our various town leaders. How feasible do they think this is? Have they already adopted similar initiatives within DPW and or other parts of the town, so that we know just how, what kind of work we're saddling people with.
Yeah, I've got some thoughts sort of somewhat related to what people have been talking about. I guess if we're saying this needs revision, who's revising it? I know Alex Hasha. I think he's taken this as far as, well, I shouldn't speak for him. I shouldn't say he's taken this as far as he can, but this is his best presentation to us. So if somebody's going to change it, is it going to be the town administrator? Is it going to be the select board? Is it going to be us?
I think it should be the author of the article.
Well,
Okay. And I guess I would ask, and I think I sort of raised this at our last meeting, that for anything like this, we can say there should be different things. Like when you were saying, Mr. Hasha was saying, oh, I wish it also had this, I wish it also had that. If I'm looking at this and saying, should town meeting pass it or not, I'm not really asking myself, oh, I wish it did more. Like if this gets you halfway there and it's fine, and if I wish it did more, I'd still might say town meeting should pass it. Those two aren't in conflict to me. But I guess when asking myself, is this a coherent article that could be passed by town meeting? I'm closer to yes than some of you, but I've got a problem. If I look at this, it's not up on the screen, but the first part says, what does the article say? The first part says, pretty much, are we going to direct the select board to measure progress on greenhouse gas? I understand that. Second part says, authorize the select board to direct relevant boards and committees to achieve the goals. I understand that. The third part says, Milton's climate action plans recommends policies, and if we were going to be a green community, we would have to do these three things. This article doesn't say the town should do these three things, like eliminate fossil fuel use, develop a roadmap, and prefer clean cars. As I read this article, it does not say we need to do those things. It's just sort of commentary saying these are things we might want to do. So I don't know, and I apologize for those of you who don't have it in front of you, I don't know what that last third or half, I don't know what that is. If town meeting passed this, what does that last paragraph do? To me, it does nothing.
that's right. I can assume, in my mind, I'm assuming that it's going to continue the Climate Action Planning Committee and they're going to start enacting this roadmap and working with all of it, but it doesn't say that anywhere. So that's just my assumption, and I could very well be wrong.
So that's sort of a technicality, like I'm nitpicking, maybe the paragraph should say, and direct the select board to do blah, blah, blah. But it's not saying that now.
Yeah.
And if it's just commentary, and if it's just saying, here's how things go. I know, again, I talked to Mr. Hasha about this, and he says, and you might have had a similar conversation with him. He looked at a lot of other towns, and their town meeting passes things that say, whereas climate change is bad, whereas we want to be a climate leader, whereas we want to get to this reduction by this year, then town meeting does this. Well, Milton town meeting doesn't do that. So I don't know if this was trying to put in some commentary in an article.
Yeah. Sounds like he just needs a little bit of help to tighten it up.
We can say that, but who's gonna provide that help? Who's gonna?
Well, it's not our Not our place to draft the language,
I
right?
don't disagree.
And
Sure.
I don't see how I could support recommending the article as written,
Okay,
because it is so vague and we do not know what we are binding ourselves to do financially as a town. And to the extent that we are clear that what does adopt a zero emission vehicle first policy actually mean, where practicable, does it mean that we're going to make best efforts? And if we can't for some logical reason, then we made our best efforts, we can't adhere to this at this point in time, and it's not going to happen by 20, 30, 40, or 50 for XYZ reason, then I'm okay with that. But if we are saying that we have to develop a roadmap and it's not clear that what our obligation is, do we need a 100-page document that has been vetted by a third-party consultant? That could mean material dollars, and I'm not sure that the town would, I guess the town would have to figure out, the town meeting members would have to figure out whether or not they're willing to bind us financially to that. Because we're talking about town rather than obligations, unlike the Green Communities 1.0, which was largely passed on to what are our increased standards in terms of building code and energy efficiency. So that's a cost borne by individuals, not by the town as a whole. So,
Ryan, I don't know if you're raising your hand or just
No, but I'm gonna.
looking
I
interested.
had-
Okay.
I had- Must be telepathically. These are really heady goals. They're tough to make, and it's gonna be a problem for most cities and towns in the state to do this. Things might change, who knows, technology. But my suspicion is Massachusetts might amend this law at some point because it's so hard to get. And if they do, we should have some language in it that says this can be, I don't know if it would change. There should be something in there that says that if the state law changes, this would follow it or something like that. That's my only point I'd make.
Okay.
Recommendation.
I guess my thinking in response to Andrew is largely, you said you wouldn't be comfortable passing this as it is. I go back to the money. What do we need to do to get the money? $150,000 for technical assistance and $1 million in project funding. What's the minimum here that we need to do? Like I said, the first two paragraphs I thought had substance. If we just had those first two paragraphs and got rid of the third because it maybe doesn't do anything, would we be eligible for those grants?
I think that's it. Those terms are embedded in the Climate Leader Community Certification Program.
Okay.
So those targets are clarified elsewhere in an existing document from the DOER.
Okay. Maybe that's, and I'm partially speculating, I'm partially remembering a conversation I had with Mr. Hasha. To be a climate leader community, we have to do several things. One is passing a bylaw like this. Another one is these three other bullets.
Yeah,
And don't take that as gospel truth.
no, and as written, it says the remaining requirements that we have not adopted yet are those 3 bullet points that you see.
Okay.
Commit to eliminating on-site fossil fuel use by 2050, develop a roadmap for decarbonizing municipal operations,
Yep.
and adopt the zero emission first policy.
Okay. Yeah, and I've got one more quick thought, and I guess I would want to have presented to us so that we can present to town meeting. Tell me more about this money. $1 million in project funding. Paint me a picture. That's going to buy the Council on Aging a new electric van. I don't know. I'd want some more. Paint me a picture of what this money is going to be used for. So that's maybe a takeaway. Julia, and then, yeah.
I was just going to say, I think I'm in agreement with you in that, I don't interpret this article as binding us to doing anything. It seems very aspirational. So I don't think I'm as worried as Andrew is about, are we implicating the town in any sort of, are there any financial implications that we're committing to? So, I don't think there's harm in passing this, but I think the flip side is, I don't think you could just do nothing except check that box towards becoming, I guess, a climate leader community, and maybe that's what we need to do. But, so I guess I don't see harm in passing it as written. I also just don't know that it gets us any closer to achieving any of these things necessarily, because it doesn't seem like a real commitment.
I mean, I disagree with that from the standpoint that I haven't actually read the Climate Leaders Community Certification. So I don't know what develop a roadmap for decarbonizing municipal operations actually means. Does it mean that we have to engage someone and that there's some, I mean, these are words
Right.
that they put in there.
But this says that the town work to achieve. It doesn't say we will do it. It just says, recommends, that we work to achieve this Climate Leader Community Certification. So we're not committing.
To actually getting the certification.
Right.
By that logic, we shouldn't even mention the grants, because that's like contingent upon doing this, and so that really muddies your waters. I think, yes, it makes sense to try to do this, but we have to look, I think we have to look at it as if we're actually going for that certification. The only way to do that is put real numbers on at least the things that we're aware of, because otherwise, what's the point?
And I think I'd be much more excited about this if that's what it was doing, committing us to becoming a climate lead. I don't know if you can do that via an article, but I mean, I agree with you. I think that might be the teeth that Alex is hoping for.
I mean, the other thing that's missing from there is that reporting on progress is very different than measuring progress. Measuring progress has a material cost to it. And I think when I asked him that question, he said his best guess was like $50,000 a shot. So what are we committing to over between now and 2050, every 5 years, $50,000 every 5 years plus whatever cost increases? And that's just a sunk cost period.
Just to measure it?
Just to measure it.
Can I challenge that? I don't understand how that could be, because you could just make it part of the budget process for like every department of town, or every department in the town, to like do like I can't remember what's it called, energy something.
Energy on it?
No, but it's a program. It's a federal program, just to make it as part of your thing, and just.
And I don't know if it mandates
I know
that there's a
we used to do
third
it.
party, and that's a question we should
Yeah.
write down and reserve to ask the
Energy.
committee or Alex when it comes.
I think this is a good conversation. We're at the half-hour mark. I'm not cutting us off just because we're at the half-hour mark, but I think we've raised lots of issues. And if anyone here, I mean, Andrew, can you, are you the funnel for people to, if they go away from this meeting, send you their questions and?
No, I think we should ask him when he comes in.
Okay, that is 3 weeks from now. I think maybe we could make some progress before then.
Okay.
But-
I think we should send him the questions in advance for sure, so that he can start to prepare. And also, somebody should reach out to the town council if nobody on this board knows, but I don't think we can actually compel another entity in town to achieve anything by a specific date. That's not something that the warrant committee can do through a warrant article. So I think work to achieve might actually be language used on purpose, because we can adopt an intention, but we can't force or we can't require somebody to do something by a certain period of time. That's my recollection.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sort of confused about that last point, because we're not requiring anything. This is an article that's requiring.
No, several people were mentioning earlier that they wanted it to have more teeth, and I'm not sure that it can have more teeth.
Okay. So, yeah, I would, and as I said, I've talked to Mr. Hasha about this. I'm happy to talk to him also, but if, I don't want to take away from you.
If people want to funnel questions to me, I can forward them to him.
Okay. All right. So next on the agenda is the school building committee article. And I believe we have a guest, or possibly two guests, to speak to this.
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
Okay, are you set up for microphones, both of you?
Is the mic? Mic's
Ask our friends in the back of the room.
Thanks, Tim. So, yeah, just for the record, Sean O'Rourke, 27 Quarry Lane, Chair of the School Building Committee, also Town Meeting Member, Precinct 8. With me is Mark Loring, my Vice Chair on the School Building Committee.
Mark Loring, 546 Randolph Avenue, Town Meeting Member and School Committee Member, Vice Chair on the School Building Committee.
So, Mr. Chair, I have a presentation, if it's okay to share.
Great, yes.
There we go. So, School Building Committee was formed in February 2019. It's comprised of 9 members. The 5 of us at the top are appointed by the town moderator. So these are essentially the original 5. So we've been on School Building Committee now for 6.5 years. The other component of it are 2 appointees by the school committee at the bottom left, and 2 appointees from the Warrant, from the select board. Glenn Hoffman's also been on the entire time. Was school committee and obviously select board members, those rotate at different times, so that's why we have that. Those are all the voting members as a component of the committee. The other members that we had to augment the committee this past town meeting was to meet MSBA's requirements for certain roles. So this is a graph that we update each year. So this shows the overall enrollment from pre-K to 5th grade for the district. The horizontal yellow line is essentially the capacity of the elementary schools that we have. So roughly after the last school building project completed around 2008, we started going over capacity. And then the past couple of years, probably about 7, we've been operating essentially 1 grade level above what the capacity is. So the component or the makeup of the district right now comprises of 4 elementary school. 2 of them are K to 5th, the other 2 are pre-K to 5th. Middle school that does 6th, 7th, and 8th, and a high school that does 9th through 12th. What we came up with as a committee, or what our recommendation was, is to build an upper middle school, and this one project then addresses multiple levels of the district. So at the elementary school level, what we would be doing is pulling out pre-K and 5th grade, and by doing so, we free up space at the elementary school without the need to redistrict. The Pierce Middle School would now house only 5th and 6th grade, so essentially we'd be pulling another grade level out of that, freeing up space at that level, and then creating an upper middle school that basically is right size along with preschool. So when we go back to the graph and you look at that, you look at 5th grade and preschool, you pull those out, it basically brings us below the capacity line that we were talking about previously there. Now, along with the enrollment that we're doing, you know, for the early parts of while we were formed, we had to figure out where we were putting this. So the committee came, and this is what our warrant article is basically about tonight, the land. So we identified some parcels on Gow Road, and we came up with what was called the land swap. So the land swap, what it's doing is taking Gow Road, realigning it, and then merging 2 of the parcels together to basically create a larger parcel that we show here in yellow. So for us, you know, this is kind of an overall timeline. Let's kind of recap of where we are right now. the article we have before us tonight is in regards to the land swap that was there and the reverter clause associated with it. So as I said, we were formed in town meeting in 2019. We spent a couple of years studying school programs, land searches, those last couple of slides, that's kind of what we culminated at. We arrived at Gow Road, and then in the town meeting in 2022, we actually had an article for a land swap ready to go at that time, and then we pulled it back, delayed ourselves a year, revised it to come up with the land swap that you saw on the previous slide. And then when we executed that, we agreed to a 5-year reverter clause, and at that time, the intention was that, the school district was not going to get accepted to MSBA, and anyone that remembers the previous school project was reimbursed at 90%. It was a very high reimbursement rate for all the schools. So the reality of us getting accepted to MSBA again was very low, or at least our anticipation of it was very low. So we said, listen, we'll give it 5 years, we'll work on our own, and we'll come up with this in 5 years. Now, the reverter clause is triggered for funding of the entire project, not the construction of the entire project. So that's another thing I just wanted to make aware of. So what happened during those 5 years? So we passed the land swap in 2023. It took a year to go through the House and the Senate to get the governor to sign it. She signed it last year on July 31st. So essentially it was a year delay that we had there. Surprisingly, in December, we got invited to MSBA. So up to that point, we were working towards a schematic design. We had a cost proposal. We had everything ready to go to start voting on this. Once we got invited to MSBA, it was essentially a hard reset for the entire project. We basically had to stop everything. We went on pause. We were only allowed to start again in May of this year. So when you look at that, we passed the land swap in 2023, May, and now May 2025 we're starting. So it's an inherent 2-year delay that we got there. The other component of this too is now that we're working with MSBA, it's a state agency. Anyone's worked with a state agency before, they go with their own timelines. So perfect example is what in the blue box on the first one there for Module 1, which is the module we entered in May, eligibility period. There was a number of deliverables we had to hit. We had 270 days to do it. We did it in 90. The tough thing with that now is we're at hurry up and wait. I've talked to MSBA. They've got us on board for their next kind of process on this, which is an enrollment meeting, which is happening roughly in October. So even though we finished July 30th, we have to wait till essentially October for this to start. Following that, we have to get approval from their board meetings, which happen, I think, once a month or every 2 weeks. So what it does, the black box for Module 1 shows how quickly we worked as a town. The blue boxes over to the side just show kind of dead time that we're dormant. The other parts that come in after we get through Module 1 is Module 2, where we onboard an architect and OPM. We go into Module 3, which would be feasibility study, where we have to study a renovation to Cunningham, a new elementary school, and a new middle school. Those are essentially the 3 options. We'll pick one of them, run with a schematic design, and then build it out to a funding article that at that point we'll look to do a vote. The votes associated with this, there are 2 votes. You have to have a town meeting vote to approve it, and then you also have to have a town-wide ballot for a debt exclusion. So all of this would have to happen before that time you see there in 2028. Now, the boxes that you see here that we have, from a chart like this, is kind of high level. So what we did is we worked with MSBA's data that's out there, and we looked at other schools or other comparable projects that are there. So Canton School, we looked at that. We took their timelines that are published there, their durations for each module, and then we plotted that on the bottom, essentially for our starting timelines, and looked at what we would do. If we were to match what Canton had, yes, we would hit, as you can see at the bottom, I'll see if we can navigate to it, yep. This red line right here is the reverter clause in 2028. With going through their modules, we would be able to get to a vote, one vote, for the project in 2028. The next one we looked at was Marlboro. Marlboro had a similar timeline, similar durations, and we could potentially get to a vote for that, again, coming up near that 2028. The one thing to keep in mind on some of these, we had our assumption, we did these in July, with thinking we'd be able to start in August, maybe September. Now we're looking a little bit further out. I wasn't able to update it for those. The other two that we looked at was Dedham. So Dedham had a longer duration that they had there, and it went well past that reverter clause timeline. And then similarly, Quincy's Squantum Elementary School, same thing, a longer duration. So when we took this data and looked at it, two of them got us right up against the reverter clause, two of them got us past the reverter clause. If anyone's aware of the past school building project, it didn't pass on the first vote. So, to anticipate that everything would be perfect and pass on a first vote, I would be a little nervous about that. So having a vote and a reverter clause that would come in right after that kind of gave the overall committee some pause when we were looking at it, and we wanted to look at this a little bit further. So the article that's before you tonight, we're hoping is going to be one of the more simple articles for this town meeting. It's basically taking the date from June 30th, 2028 and revising it to June 30th, 2033. Again, for the reasons that we were describing before, mainly due to MSBA and the associated timelines we're going to experience with that. And with that, I think that is my end. Questions?
I would like to look at the two warrant committee experts who I believe talked to you, Elaine and Brian. Would you like to tell us what you learned from talking to
Go
them?
first.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you for meeting with us last week, and very helpful, and thank you for giving me all the information I asked for. I appreciate that. But I had two questions and I have some comments, but
And just let me know if you need me to share the screen again. I shut it off
No.
just so the audience could see it run.
that's okay. I'm good. You said, I've heard this, and I refreshed my memory. They say the capacity of the elementary schools is 1,900.
Correct.
What does that come from?
So I think originally it came from DRA Architecture, where they looked at the number of rooms that were constructed and baseline enrollments that they have there for each room. So that was the number that I've always been given for it.
Is it 92 classrooms in elementary?
I don't know the exact number. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a question. I'd be curious what's behind that. And maybe I missed this too, but they're going to renovate Cunningham, you said, in Collicott?
Correct. I was up there the other day. It looks good.
Oh, you're talking about the fourth floor, or?
No, so
Another renovation.
The library. So in the library of Collicott Cunningham, town meeting passed town meeting funding for the construction of that. So they started that when school got out in June, and Mark can definitely talk to this better. But it's basically ready to go. I think it added 3 or 4 classrooms and some office space. And then what it's doing is removing the library from where it was and putting it up on the 4th floor. That's not ready yet. That's phase 2.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I think it was supposed to be 4 classrooms, right? Cunningham?
It's 3 classrooms and a teacher workspace.
Oh, okay.
It's currently on the 4th floor, which will go away once the library's up there. And then again, offices and pull-out space and things like that.
Yeah, and those additional spaces there wouldn't build into that baseline number that I had there, but obviously that 1,900 capacity number would increase because we just created new classrooms.
Yeah.
I guess I was sort of hoping Brian and Elaine could tell us what you learned from your earlier conversation with John.
Okay.
No, go ahead. I was just going to say that we met and had a good discussion, a long discussion about a number of things that really go beyond the scope of the actual article, right? So the scope is just, the article is just asking for another 5 years. I think it's very easy to get into lots of things that go back into history and sort of relitigate the whole thing that we did at town meeting. So I think this is a tricky article for that reason. I don't have any questions about what's happening with MSBA. John explained that to us the other night. They are notorious. I mean, I work for the Commonwealth, and this is the case with any school building authority, whether it's K-12 level or higher ed, that you have to go on their timeline. He showed us the projections from the other towns, and I don't have any questions about why the extension is necessary.
So my questions and my issues are, should we be doing this in the first place?
Okay.
And one of my biggest issues is with the student population. Because when this was originally done in 2019, there was a high estimate for student population. It was going to grow so much. In 10 years, 5 years, the 3-year and 10-year analysis. And the school population in Milton actually has been flat for like 7 years. And New England School Development, or whatever it is actually projecting a decrease of 3% over the next 10 years in population. And so if you looked at the student population, what it is estimated to be at, versus like the number of classrooms we were going to add with this school, it's completely different. It's probably like, if I had to guess, maybe like half of what it should be. But but let me just say this.
Okay.
I think somebody needs to look at it. A consultant should be, I would recommend that a consultant be hired and really look at this and look at the options. Because if the student population isn't going to grow that much, then maybe the right thing we should do, and you don't need 25 classrooms or 26 classrooms.
We've got a whole committee of people right there, why don't we just ask them the question?
Yeah, I'm asking the question now. Thank you. And if we only need 14 classrooms or whatever it is, then maybe we have 4 at Cunningham. Maybe we could do add-ons to Glover. Maybe we could do an add-on to some other schools. So that would be my question.
I guess I understand. What I'm thinking is, with the article that's in front of us, you said your question is, should we be doing this at all?
Right.
And I want to be focused on, how does that affect the article in front of us? Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, well, that's what it's all about. School.
I mean, the article in front of us just says, instead of the land swap reverting, 4 years from now, give it another 5 years to
Let me say what I think is, I don't know the answer. I'm not sure many people do, because the student population estimate's different from what we thought it would be. And somebody should do it. Somebody should look at it. Maybe we should do the land swap in the meantime, just to hold the land, just in case we need to do it. That might make sense to me. But I think that we should.
Can we just ask them if they have their consultants look at it?
Okay.
Yeah.
They've been working on this for years. They may have some of the information.
So just to answer your question about hiring consultants, that's exactly what's going to happen. So with the MSBA process right now, they're doing their own enrollment study. That meeting I'm talking about in October, they take all the data that we give them. So part of Module 1 that we had to give them was how many building permits we're pulling, how many births are going to be there, are there any construction projects coming up, is there anything that's going to feed into future enrollment that's there? And they're going to look at the numbers for, even though it's leveled off, it's still, like I said, an entire grade level above where we were. It hasn't gone down. It even ticked up last year. So the ask that you're asking to have consultants look at this, to really give it a third-party look, that's essentially what MSBA is doing. That's the meeting that we're going to have in October. So all that's going to be done. And then part of that, as I mentioned, we have to look at 3 different options. In addition to Cunningham, because we submitted an SOI to Cunningham, a new elementary school and a new middle school. So we're looking at a number of options there, and then they're looking at enrollments for each one of them.
So the state's going to look at what the estimated student population is.
Yeah, so the state has their own hired consultants. I think STV Engineering or Architects are the consultant that they use. So it's an independent consultant outside of them. So they hire their own like we hire an owner's project manager. They do similar for their consulting side to do these enrollments.
So the NASDAQ estimates that they do every year, those won't be part of the... Those won't be considered by the state when it goes through MSBA?
They will. They do. My understanding is they do similar to what NASDAQ does. So NASDAQ's an independent organization that the district hires to do their enrollment projections. Every disclaimer they give is great. They say our first couple of years, it's right on. It's very accurate. 10 years out, not that accurate, and it's the disclaimer they put right on there, because the reality is they can't guess or have an educated guess at real estate transactions. How many people are going to move out? How many people are going to move in? They basically take birth rates in a town, they extrapolate it out 6 years, and they say those are the kids that come in, plus or minus a few. The slide that I was showing before with the spikes that we were getting, it all happened right after the last school building project. That Milton became very attractive. They just built all their schools. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm sure some of you are here, right? And it was just something that came in. So, for us, to essentially answer your question, they're going to take the data that we give them. They also use DESI, I think, for their enrollment stuff. So the package that I sent you guys was all the literature that we sent to MSBA that we had to upload to them. They're taking all that data that's there and developing their own enrollment projection on there.
Lee Michael, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks. Is the dash before June purposeful?
I couldn't hear him.
It's a serious question that I don't want asked on town meeting floor.
There's a dash before the very last June 30th.
I think I would defer to town council on that. I don't know. I know that one has apostrophes, the other doesn't. I don't know. So if there's
Probably
if there's a
not.
lawyer in the room, I'll defer to them.
There should also probably be quotations before June 30th and at the end of the period of 2033. Since you want to insert the following words, there should be quotations throughout.
I agree. I would like to make a motion that we change this recommendation to have quotations around June 30th, 2033 and remove the dash mark. And with those changes, I'd like to make a motion that we recommend the town vote yes, as written.
There is a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, now we can have discussion of this motion, which,
The first motion. He made two motions.
The motion to amend.
The motion to amend.
I understood his motion to be, he's proposing we accept this as shown with the change that you remove the dash and put in quotes.
Okay.
Was that your one and only motion, Lee Michael? Okay. The motion has been moved and seconded. Would anyone like to discuss it?
My question is, I'll say the same thing, based on student population rates, what the estimate is. I'm not sure this should have been done in the first place. It's questionable. And that's my issue.
To that comment, I'm going to say I understand, and there's no way I'm going to tell this committee of people that they can't have more time to figure this out. So this article is a yes, an easy yes for me.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion.
So what are we discussing? Just the
Okay.
adding the quotations, or are we
No, the article.
discussing making a recommendation to the warrant committee, on behalf of the warrant committee?
Yeah, this is the final, the second one. The motion before us is to recommend to town meeting. So this is, everybody kumbaya here. This is our first, as a warrant committee, recommendation to town meeting in the 2025 warrant committee. We are voting on if we recommend to town meeting this article.
Okay, I have one question here. So the MSBA has this 18 to 22 month module 3 feasibility. You guys did all of that work before, so it's required by the state. So that's the kind of delta between making the 2028 and asking for the 2033 extension. And so I just didn't understand why that feasibility that you guys already did so thoughtfully is required to be redone.
I would love to dust it off and just hand it into them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the reality is with MSBA, we have to start over because we have to look again at a renovation to Cunningham,
And that's an addition and as well as a renovation, probably, right?
Yeah, basically any augmentation to
Yeah.
it. The new elementary school and then the middle school. So the good thing is what we can do is we can salvage some of the work from there, but we can't just take the entire program, partly because we have to hire new architects. So you also have
And
to...
so that whole feasibility is at our cost, the town's cost.
Yeah. The good thing with it is, the money that we're putting up for that feasibility study, we get reimbursed at roughly 45%.
And that's the reimbursement rate that we're hoping to get is 45%?
Correct.
Of the total cost?
Of the
Reimbursable
eligible
cost.
costs. So what happens is 45% is going to get thrown around, and it's a number that goes against eligible costs. Some of the project will be ineligible costs. So, we had our OPM on before. We talked about, what's an effective rate, like how much does it dilute down to? And the number he was saying, it was probably dilute to like 28% was the numbers that are there. So if you want to talk total cost, it's about 28%.
Yep, so, sorry, I know there's been a lot of numbers thrown around, I don't know if you guys have a number, right? They're big from what I hear, but
Yep.
have you done the analysis of what's the difference between trying to go forward without the reimbursement at the current budget versus the benefit of getting the reimbursement and extending the timeline?
Yep. So part of what we did originally, again, with our OPM, once we got invited to MSBA, we said, all right, listen, this is going to take longer. There's going to be escalation costs associated with it. Compare those escalation costs against the reimbursement that we're going to get. The break-even time they came up with was about 6 years. So if it takes longer than 6 years, it costs us more. If we do it faster than 6 years, which we want to do, it's actually cheaper.
And you're kind of right on that break even of that 6-year window between
Yeah.
this timeline.
Yeah, we need to move fast.
Yeah.
And that's my goal. So we've been on this committee for 6.5 years. I don't want to be on it another 6 years.
Right. Sounds like you're on it for 6
I
more.
love coming in front of the Warrant Committee, but another 6 years, yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, we'll move to a vote.
No problem.
Okay. Karen, can you call the roll?
Did we have a second?
Yes, Elaine seconded.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
And can we clarify what we're voting on right now?
Sure. We are voting to recommend to town meeting the wording as is shown, which is essentially asking, petition the general court to make this change from the land swap expiring in 2028 to land swap expiring in 2033. And it includes the typographical changes that Lee Michael and also Macy mentioned.
Okay.
And I will say, and this is perhaps a deviation from what previous warrant committee chairs did, we're voting, are we going to do this? It'll pass or fail. If it fails, we haven't taken any action. Now, in the past, people have said, oh, if it fails, that means you're recommending a no. If we want to recommend a no, we have to vote to recommend a no. Okay. So I'm not predicting anything that's going to happen. I'm just saying, are we going to do this, or are we going to see if we're doing something else?
Sorry, one more question for me. Is there a reason we have to take that vote tonight? I wasn't really thinking we're making any kind of recommendations tonight that way, and
Yeah.
so I don't, do we have to do it tonight, or can we extend that to a future meeting?
I will answer. I don't know if you'll be satisfied with my answer. Two things. One is on the agenda, I said discussion/vote, because I thought we might vote. And the second one is, we have a motion before this body and it's been seconded.
Okay.
So you may not, that's not, I know that's not answering the question you asked.
No,
but
that's
it's
good.
where we are.
Thank you.
Okay. Karen, I believe we're ready for a roll call.
Okay, Missy,
Yes.
Elaine,
Yes.
Lorraine,
Yes.
Larry,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes?
Julia,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Lee Michael,
Yes.
Ron,
Yes.
Nicholas,
I'm gonna abstain. I haven't made up my mind.
Cecile,
Yes.
and Jay.
Abstain.
The motion carries.
Okay. That is our first recommendation to town meeting as a body.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is, I've got sort of smushed together two things, mostly the light trespass bylaw, but I think we'll also be asking for wisdom from our fines experts also. So for the light trespass bylaw, I believe we have Mr. O'Rourke as an invited guest expert on some aspects. but maybe not other aspects. So I would turn to Ron and Nick, who are warrant committee experts. Can you tell us what you learned, what you found out, what the article is about, what questions you have?
Okay, great. So first, I think we'd like to thank Sean for being recruited to also advise on this article. He somehow finds the time with all his other duties, so much appreciated, Sean. I think Sean will talk a little bit about the measurement techniques, more of a technical explanation. If you look at the article, there's a certain amount of light emissions, and we would say that if you go over that, that's a nuisance, and there's some detection techniques, and Sean can talk to that. But I think when Nick and I looked over this article, there were a couple of questions. This article has been before the warrant committee and town meeting before, and it got postponed for this fall town meeting. I think two of the questions that I recall coming up when we talked this last was around the lack of appeal process, if there's a determination of a nuisance, and also the amount and the fine. It's $300 a day. And so those types of things, I don't think Sean will talk to. Those will probably have to go to the sponsor of the article, which I believe is the select board. We asked those questions to Ben Zoll, so maybe he may come at some point, Jay, or he can provide an explanation to us by email and we'll share it back. But those, I think those types of questions we won't need to get into with Sean. I think Sean will just present on how are levels of light emission detected and what's a reasonable standard. Does that sound right, Nick?
Yeah, I think that's great.
I apologize if I'm putting you on the spot, but certainly half of this body was not around last year when we discussed it. And I don't know if Mr. O'Rourke is going to talk about the whole overarching, what's the idea? Why is this coming before us? Why did it get a mixed but somewhat positive reception from the warrant committee last year?
Yeah.
What's it about?
Maybe I can, what I can recall from last year, I think the original sponsor was Erin Bradley, who was on the select board. She's no longer on the select board, but I think she worked extensively on this article. And without getting into details about why, I think there is an interest in town to be able to provide guidance on what's acceptable amount of light to emit from your house to your neighbors or into public land. So I think ultimately this is to help folks know if there's a certain amount of light being emitted, if there's a way to determine if it's a nuisance. And the select board would make that determination through the inspection services department. So I know there's some speculation that there are specific houses that maybe are emitting a lot of light. I don't think we should get into that. I think we just look at this. This is going to be an article that impacts all of us as neighbors, and I would take that perspective without thinking about any specific families that maybe have case-specific situations.
Yeah, to me, the biggest thing is the definition in the article where it says light trespass means a condition in which artificial light emitted from a luminaire, and I think that's where Sean can be really helpful, is understanding what, a luminaire is, the technical definition there. On one property is directed in such a manner that the light source or glare is visible from any other property and constitute a public hazard or nuisance. And so I think that's the key thing, is does the light that emits from whatever that source is constitute a public hazard or nuisance? And there's some definition about a public hazard or nuisance in the article, but I think that's the essence of what we're here to talk about. And I don't know, Sean, if you could spend a few minutes and maybe talk about some of those technical terms and what the brightness of the light would be, I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, Sean has a presentation. So one thing we asked Sean is, how do we as normal people know how much light is too much light? Right, and the measurement's a little complicated because it depends distance from the light and what angle. So we thought Sean could kind of educate us a little bit.
Thanks. Reintroduction again, just to be safe.
Thank you.
Sean O'Rourke, town meeting member, Precinct 8, chair of the school building committee, 27 Quarry Lane. So. Had a good conversation with Ron and Nick the other day, and as they mentioned, I'm here from a technical aspect, not a proponent of the article or anything.
You can't hear him very well.
Is that better?
Yeah, thanks.
Sorry about that. So I'm here as basically like a technical witness. I answer questions and stuff like that. As far as the administration of the bylaw when it goes through and stuff like that, I'm not keen on that, or yeah,
Thank you.
respond to it. So just share my screen again. And this is similar, so for those of you here last year, I did a similar presentation, just to kind of go over what light trespass is. So there's two things with lighting when you're looking at it. So there is the light that's emitted from a source, a candle in this case. There's what's called a luminance, and that's, so the light falls on a surface. When it falls on a surface, you can measure it, and it's called a luminance. What you see is actually called luminance. So it's based on a number of things, the type of material it's reflecting off of, your eye, and different things there. So with this article, what we're trying to do is measure the illuminance when we're talking about this stuff. And one of the things in last year's article, there was some confusion when I was reading it, so I jumped in to help Ms. Bradley with that, and I was probably the reason that there were a lot of edits towards town meeting, which caused it to get kicked back. So Ms. Bradley and myself worked to kind of refine everything and get it a little better. So the unit of measurement when you're measuring illuminance comes in whether it's a lux or a foot candle. They're both mean the same thing, they're just different. One's English, one's metric. So a foot candle is a light or candle held 1 foot away from a 1 foot by 1 foot square area. That's how much light falls on there is a foot candle. A lux is a same candle a meter away from a meter by meter square area. So they're essentially a 10-to-1 ratio. So the key thing of this is when you're talking these measurements, you got to make sure you're talking the correct measurement unit because they're off by 10-to-1. So it gets really important. So what the basis of this article is this graphic for me kind of showed it the best. On the left-hand side, you have a light, and people have them all the time on the side of the lights, on the side of the house or garage, like a big floodlight, and it shines light in all directions. And what we're looking to do is at the property boundary, figure out how much light is passing across that boundary and landing on your neighbor's property. Ideally, what you want is something on the right-hand side, which is a directional light down. It's called a full cutoff light, so no light going up in the sky. But you're basically trying to push the light down to the ground and illuminate the area of your property while not spilling over to your neighbors. So one of the questions that came up, I threw this slide in for relevance. So, and it's tough because the measurement that we're at right now for the boundary, I believe the article has it as 1 foot candle or 10 lux. Most things aren't typically lit to 1 foot candle because it's too low for safety. Most of the time you do artificial lighting, it's for safety for people to navigate around walkways, train stations, parking garages. But typically, I think the walkway is probably the safest one there, looking at about 2 foot candles that's on there. The other ones vary because you have what's called, it gets into ratios of max to min. So if you look at the parking garage, parts of it are very bright, parts of it are very dark. So the walkway is probably the best one to, if you were trying to equate low foot candles. The other one that comes in too, and it won't play into the intensity, but it deals with perception, how people see light. You have different color temperatures. So anybody shopped at Home Depot, you put the wrong light in, you have like 5 lights that are blue, 1 light that's yellow. It's, that's color temperature when you talk about it. And the key thing that comes in, like I said before, everybody sees light differently. So, a neighbor might see it and look at it and say, the light's too bright, and it's mainly because lenses on your eye yellow over time, so it filters out different lights different ways, so those color temperatures tend to shift. The other part that comes in too is at nighttime, when you're looking at lights at nighttime, you're in what's called a scotopic region of vision. And getting nerdy, there are things called rods and cones in your eye. They react differently in different vision ranges to different colors of light. One of the key things I tried to do here, because this bylaw isn't going to capture every available instance for what they're going to be asked to look at there. But we tried to make it as modular as possible that, it can be worked with. One of the things that was missing on the previous one is like most lights are on or off, like they have a manual switch to them. So if there is a nuisance that's there, see if the neighbor would shut it off and then shut it off. I think the ones that this article is looking to really do is ones that are just on 24/7 or on continuously overnight, that if they switch off, it shouldn't be considered a nuisance. The one last thing, I'll end with this, was the way we wrote up the measurements on there is, for example, I'll go back to the property boundary one just for... So the light on the right, the way we crafted the article is at the property boundary on the right, they would go over and take a measurement. Then they would shut the light off and they would look at how much it reduced down. And if it reduced down by greater than 1 foot candle, meaning that light was contributing more, it would be considered a hazard, a nuisance. But if it's the light's on intermittently, if it's on a motion sensor and happens to go on and get latched for a minute or two and then shuts off, I don't believe that would constitute, light trespass or anything like that. I think it's more of a judgment call of how long it's on for and other things like that. So that was one of the things when you're looking at the article, the kind of equation, if you want to call it that. The reason we did it that way is to tell how much a singular light is contributing to it. And I think we also, the one that you didn't see last year, we have 5 points of measurements on there, and we look at all 5 points when they do it. And I say I mean the town. Sorry.
There are exceptions, and one of them is for motion-activated lights, so security lights.
That is...
Okay.
That is it. Yep.
I'll look back to Nick and Ron. Do you have more to say either in response to that or other thoughts for the warrant committee?
Yeah, I had no clue what a lux is, so hearing from Sean a second time, I think I understand it a little better now. But I think there were some concerns about how will this be measured, who's going to do the measurements. I think there was some talk last year that you can get a device for $1,000 was the recommended device, but you can also go on Amazon and get a $50 device. Is there a difference in quality? Probably. So there are a lot of things for the select board, which would be the body kind of owning this enforcement, and then the inspection services to go decide. Because there has to be some protocols that would still be written. That's not included here, all the detailed steps. But I think for the warrant, I think for me at least, the key questions were if there's a determination of a violation, $300 seems high, and then there's no ability to appeal it. Those are really more for, I think, the select board to decide if that's what they want to propose. I think it's fine, but I would just say we should probably make an informed decision before town meeting if that's what the warrant committee is comfortable with. It seems high to me, but Nick?
Yeah, I agree. I have 4 questions. I think one of them is the size of the fine. I think Lee Michael's presentation next might help that put in the context. It seems, given the work that he's done, this might seem on the high side to me. But the other question, and I think a really important question, is there doesn't seem to be any ability for somebody that's deemed in violation to appeal that decision. So that seems unfair to me, that there's no opportunity for that appeal. That seems like it should be worked into this. And then I had 2 other observations from the way the bylaw is written. Again, the comment is about a natural hazard to people or property. And 2 of the elements of this, one is about wilderness area, habitat, or reserves. I don't understand how that would affect people or property. So that seems like an overreach and potentially makes a lot of people vulnerable to being accused of kind of light trespass. And the other one is light trespass on the waters of the United States. And I don't understand why the town of Milton thinks that they can mandate a requirement on the waters of the United States, I would think that Coast Guard would have something to say about that. So those are my 4 things: the size of the fine, the right of appeal, which to me is the biggest issue, and 2 parts of this that don't seem quite aligned with the purpose of the article, which I think I'm supported by. We all want ability to have our privacy and enjoy our properties, and that's the intent of this, and I think that's great, but I think the devil's in the details.
I would like to throw out one thing. You both mentioned appeals. Do either of you know, our other bylaws and our other Milton bylaws have appeals?
I don't know the answer to that question. We tried to get Sean, and, he was gracious enough to give us his time, and he's like, I'm the technical expert in lighting. He's really helped me on that. And
Okay.
I think we need to hear from somebody on the select board about some of these other details, because I think they're important. Like, if you get deemed to be in violation, they've spent out the inspectional services, they've, measured from 5 different places, presumably at night. That's been a meaningful amount of people's time and investment, and if you get deemed to be a violation, you're gonna get charged $300 a day. You should be able to have a thoughtful discourse about why that may or may not be the case, especially given what, Sean shared with us, or some of the technical variations about how the measurement could take place, and, that there's some subjective criteria to that. They're laid out in a relative objective manner, but what I understand is different experts could disagree on some of those objective criteria, and so it feels like there should be an opportunity for somebody to kind of push back if they get judged a violation.
Okay.
Yeah, only build I would have, we're talking about appeal, but when I look at the article, I don't really see where the homeowner can even go to the select board to argue their case. It looks like there's a complaint gets filed within a certain amount of time, select board tells the inspection services, go out there, take a look. They take their measurements. I don't know if the owner has to be there. I guess they do if they turn the light on, but maybe they show up at night and the light's just on. And this could all happen after someone just gets a piece of mail, and they maybe don't read their mail. I don't read my mail. But this could all happen after 40 days, and then they start the fines start tallying up. They may not have had a chance to go talk to someone at the select board to explain, I have vision impairment, I need extra light. Maybe that's an explanation that we would say that seems fair. So it could be that we don't need to have an appeal, but there's got to be some way that someone can present their case as a resident to say, hey, I need this for my own personal reasons. And so I think even if the select board add that the select board has to talk to the homeowner or give them a chance to come in, maybe that could suffice. I don't know.
Okay. I think we've heard good concerns from the 2 of you, and I hope that you can connect with Mr. Zoll, maybe Mr. Milano. I don't know. Someone track those down. I'd like to throw this open to the body. I don't know if we're going to answer questions tonight, but to the body of the Warrant Committee, do you have other questions, concerns, thoughts? I'll phrase this a different way. If you don't raise questions, concerns, thoughts now, and then we come back in 2 or 3 weeks and have answers to what's been raised, are you okay with this? So, questions, concerns, and we will get to the fines. I will be calling on my fines experts in a minute, but before that, do other members of the body? Yes, Brian.
A few. This is one reason why I was kicked out last time, was because there was no appeal process. And I think other Mass towns do have appeal processes for this. And I think that's important. I think $300 seems high. Per day.
We'll get to the fines in a second.
Per day. So I think that's excessive. And I don't really like a lux, it's 10 lux, right? And what is that? But that's like a street light. So technically, is the town of Milton in violation?
There's some exceptions for...
Yeah. But it seems like
Streetlights are not an exception. I looked at this a couple times. So, emergency lights are, construction lights are, but streetlights are not an exception. So I kind of wondered about that.
Construction lights be?
Well, because if you had a water main break, they need to be able to see in the dark so they can fix it without, I thought that was pretty
But if they're
reasonable.
building a building, you wouldn't want the lights on. You think?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question.
That's my other big question is, any thoughts about how many people are in violation across the town on this? Do we have any idea how many people this would affect?
It requires a complaint, doesn't it?
Yes.
So right now, 0.
No, but I mean, but that could be in violation of the 10 lux rule. Do you have any idea? That's a thought.
I think the most pragmatic part of this was the fact that if you have a motion sensor light, it's exempted as well. So, for people that have them for security or safety, getting out of their car, walking to their house, you have a motion sensor light, might be irritating your neighbor, but, it's temporary, and, that seems like a really thoughtful exception. So there's a lot of practical parts of this. It's just a couple that I thought needed a little bit of help with.
Yeah.
I thought the streetlights would fall under exception 3, which reads, any form of lighting whose use is mandated or otherwise governed by any legal jurisdiction with broader authority than that of the town. I just thought that somebody must tell us how bright these lights are. Maybe no one, and we just decide, let's go brighter or dimmer, I don't know. But
I mean, the funny thing about the motion sensor lights is I could think of a case where I wouldn't be okay with that exception. Like if somebody has a motion sensor light that points into my bedroom and it goes off every time a raccoon goes to the yard, that to me is a bigger nuisance than somebody whose backyard light extends 1 foot beyond the boundary line. And so, not that I'm advocating that we eliminate that exception, but I think there just needs to be some mechanism for reasonable people to look at things in a reasonable manner. And one example would be, we shouldn't start fining on day 1 as soon as it's measured. I mean, we should give an opportunity and a property owner some remediation period. And
Which they do have 30 days to rectify.
Okay.
I agree with you, Andrew. I have a super wonky backlight that is triggered by I don't know what, so I don't even use it because I'm thinking probably would drive my neighbors crazy. So yeah, if every time a squirrel goes by, your motion sensor light is activated, and to your point, it's like in your bedroom window. I'd rather have it on all night than. So, not to get nitpicky, but yeah, it'd be nice to have some, like you said, language around just reasonability. I don't know. I don't know. How you do that.
An appeals process makes sense to me also. I think it's better than the first time this came around, but not fully baked in my mind. And I can't even think of how to craft the language right offhand around the exception for the motion sensor lighting, but I could, if somebody had a 10,000 Kelvin light that right into my bedroom every night, then I'd be pretty pissed.
I'll play, I don't know if devil's advocate is the right word, but right now we have no lighting bylaw. So if we put in a lighting bylaw that covers a lot of things, but doesn't cover that, and the question that the town is asking us to recommend at town meeting is, should we pass this or should we not? I feel bad because I feel like I'm shutting down discussion, which is not in my nature, but it's sort of, this is what's in front of us. If we can think of an amendment, that's one thing, but
is it
sort of like the climate bill. Some of us around this table said, boy, we wish it had been tougher, but
Yeah, I mean, I can think of an amendment. One is to have them amend one, put in a mechanism for appeals.
Yep.
And
yeah, I think that's...
some sort of reasonable accommodation clause. With regards to the motion sensor, maybe an exception on there, and the exception to the exception, in the event that the motion sensor light causes a reasonable nuisance or a nuisance to a neighbor. They have X number of days to resolve.
I hear what you're saying. Can I recommend you work with our 2 experts who are going to be working with...
Yeah, we're going to try to talk with Ben.
Yeah.
And then we can propose amendments. I'm sure he may also see things that he thinks that they want to modify.
Yeah.
So if they would modify it, then we maybe don't need to propose an amendment. We can see if the select board wants to modify, and then we can bring it back.
So this might be a good time. We keep talking about fines, and we have 2 fines experts on this group.
Hey, Jay, you got a couple of hands up here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for speaking up. Who's first? I'll let Macy talk first. we're going to hear from you a lot, Lee Michael.
My comments are a bit delayed at this point, but I concur with both Andrew and Nick that there needs to be an appellate process
Okay.
because other areas of bylaws have that. Such as the ADU, that's one of the ones that came to my mind. But my other question is, I know we're on to fines, but is it really our role to create amendments to what I consider to be a flawed article? I mean, is that something that needs to be done, like, or not us?
I will answer that question to the extent that I can, and here's how I think about it. This something will go in front of town meeting. Town meeting can make amendments. So, as a strict answer to, well, as a very strict answer to your question, yes, we can make amendments. As a slightly less strict answer to your question, if town meeting can make amendments, then we can make amendments to what we're suggesting. Now, I think it's...
But we can make like typographical strikers type amendments, but substantive amendments such as rewriting the article to provide an appellate process. I don't know if that's our role, Jay.
Okay.
I don't know the answer to that. I'm just wondering because we're looking for something that's typographical. I would say yeah. Patient?
The answer to this question is
shoot.
it is our role, definitely. We can write what we want in our recommendation, and frequently, like a citizen's petition, for instance, they'll submit something that's pretty rough around the edges because they don't know how to write an article. The warrant committee can then work with that person on what the best possible language is and what the warrant committee would accept. And then you put that language into the recommendation. You don't go back and change the actual article generally that was submitted. It's just reflected in your recommendation. And the rule is you can make articles that were submitted more narrow or more restrictive, but you can't expand them and make them bigger and apply to more things. So in this case, if you were to put an appeals process in, I kind of think town council or whatever, sometimes the moderator determines what's in scope or out of scope. I would think that putting an appeals process in makes this a more restrictive article, which would be allowed rather than making it less restrictive.
Excellent. Okay, thank you for that.
Thank you, Michael. That last part you made is interesting because I believe I take your word for it, but it's not what I thought. What I thought the rule was something's printed in the warrant, and everybody in town gets to read it and talk to their town meeting members about it. And so if our recommendation is printed in the warrant, I don't know, I'm sort of rambling. I didn't know we were restricted in that way, but
no, you're right. Our recommendation gets printed after the article. The article gets written in the warrant, and then it says the recommendation of the warrant committee is, and then our recommendation can differ in a number of ways.
Okay. Okay. And I guess I would respond to Macy's question about amendments in a different way. I agree with what Lee Michael said. I would say, let's say we want to change. Everybody's going to be happiest if we go back to the select board and say, we want this change, and they say we agree, and they change it. That way everybody's happiest. But let's say we're not shooting from the hip, but let's say we talk to town council, we talk to town administrator, we talk to some expert, and the expert says you should do this different thing. And the select board says we disagree. Well, then what's going to happen? If we decide to go ahead with that, what's going to happen is the warrant committee would stand in front of town meeting, would say we want to do A. The select board would stand in front of town meeting, would say no, the warrant committee's wrong, you should do B. And that's perfectly fine as long as we're willing to stand in front of the town meeting and say, here's why we think you should do this thing that's slightly different than what the select board recommended.
But then somebody has to make a motion at town meeting to adopt the amendment that the warrant committee is proposing.
No, because the motion before the body is the warrant committee's proposal. So if it's different than there's the light text, which is what we'll get into at our summit. There's a light text, which is the recommendation, and the bold, the light text is the article, the bold is our recommendation.
Okay.
And that's the motion before the body.
I'm sorry, you're saying we can change the language to a what?
We can.
Well, we can
I don't read
propose
the
an
law
amendment.
that way.
We can propose an amendment, right? We can't change the warrant language.
It's not an amendment, no, it really is our recommendation. You can take whatever was submitted in terms of an article, and we craft from that what our recommendation is. And it doesn't have to match word for word what was submitted, and we can make it more restrictive if we want. So if we want to say it's only going to apply to, half these things instead of all these things, then that's an option that the warrant committee can do. It's not an amendment process. This is the discussion where we're saying, okay, somebody submitted this article. Do we want to recommend this article? Yes or no? No, then we don't do anything. Yes, but we want to make some changes to it. So here's our recommended changes. In the last couple of town meetings, there was a ton of pink sheets. That's where, or the green sheets or whatever, that's where the warrant committee recommendations sort of came in at the last minute. Those documents frequently don't match what was in the warrant. They should ideally be printed in the warrant right after the original article, but they frequently are very different.
Yeah, the select board could propose an article that says, we think the official ice cream flavor of the town should be vanilla. And we can say, we think it should be chocolate. What will be printed in bold is, we recommend the town adopt the official ice cream flavor as chocolate. That's the motion before the
It's in the
body.
recommendations, though. It's not, we don't change the word, the language.
Well, again, there's the sort of normal font, which is the article. There's the bold font, which is our recommendation. And then there's the italicized font where we explain our recommendation. So it's what goes before the body, that's what they vote on.
Yeah. If I read 12.4, maybe we should look at this, but how I read 12.4, the bylaws, it just says, I don't think we can change it.
No, we're not actually changing.
not actually
We're not
changing
changing the art. I mean, part of the purpose of
Recommendations.
part of the purpose of having these conversations with the authors of the warrant articles is to discuss what we think are flaws, and in hopes that they make revisions to the warrant
That I get.
article language. And no, we cannot. My understanding, we cannot edit or change the actual language, but we could propose, which is, this has the same effect as somebody else at town meeting presenting an amendment.
Correct.
Proposing an amendment. It just so happens that we get to put it in print before the meeting happens, but the net effect is the same. And hopefully, we're able to provide the feedback before the meeting so that the authors can either decide to adopt our language.
And I'll give
Put
a
in the
teaser. This is the sort of conversation that I want to have at the summit. This is the exact sort of topics that I want to cover at the summit, which will be in 2 weeks. So get excited. I will also say, for our friends remotely, I think I've said this before, I view you as equal members to the people in the table. So if I'm ignoring you, take yourself off mute, speak up, please. Cecile, did you have your hand up? No? Okay. Lee Michael, did you want to, well, you say what you...
Yes,
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I had something on this article.
Okay.
I agree an amendment process should be considered. We should look to see if any of our other bylaws have an amendment process and see if we can...
Did you mean an appeals process?
Yeah, sorry, appeals process, thank you. And then secondly, I did some quick searching here as to why, the language also struck me funny as the wilderness, natural areas, and the waters of the United States. And apparently those are very common things that are included in bylaws like this in communities because they're recommended by the Dark Sky Association. The whole point here is to try to decrease the amount of light that's escaping from people's private property. And so you don't want it going on the water where it then shines and et cetera. And you don't want it illuminating wildlife areas or whatever. So if the experts could look into this, it would be wonderful to know how many towns around us have those two provisions around the wilderness and light trespass, and what those numbers are. My brief research showed that 10 bucks going onto your neighbor's property actually might be kind of excessive compared to what some of the other towns are doing. And my last point is we should tighten up that motion detector thing. That's a giant hole in this article that we can make a little more reasonable.
When you say tighten up, what do you mean?
A person should not be able to have a motion detector that exceeds the lux levels written in this article that can go on and off an unlimited number of times, because if achieving the same thing that the article is trying to restrict. So I would think that you would not want your neighbor's light, like it was pointed out earlier, pointed into your bedroom window and going off every time wildlife went by or a car went by or whatever the case may be. I think there should be some additional language there that says what's reasonable and isn't reasonable with regard to a motion detector.
Okay.
Just,
Oh, Sean, Mr.
yeah,
O'Rourke?
sorry. Just to the comment on the value of 10 lux. So when you look at dark sky basically, as Lee was talking about, these, the language here is they have a template that you can use. The baseline that they used for the property was 1 lux. And, talking with Ms. Bradley, we wanted to bump it up to 10 lux. So it wasn't, to the point that was raised earlier, that everybody in town would be in violation. If it was 1 lux, based on my judgment, everybody would. By bumping it up, we tried to provide a higher threshold, so it wouldn't be something that would be continuously done there. As I was saying too, 10 lux, as just from the examples we were looking at, is still not a high level of light, so it's not going to be very bright or anything like that. If they're below that number.
Okay.
I apologize to interrupt, but I think Macy needs to drop soon and wanted to get onto the voting on the minutes if possible.
Oh,
If we could take a slight detour and vote on the minutes.
okay. Macy, is that correct? Would you like to address voting on minutes right now?
No, I appreciate that. I just need to log off to get some rest.
Okay.
So I submitted 5 sets of minutes to Karen, and I understand that she distributed them
Thanks, Sean.
this morning. They are the ones from August 11th, 2025, my last meeting, and then May 7th, 2024, and 3 really old sets of minutes that consist of May 1st, 2023, May 2nd, 2023, and December 11th, 2023. I'd like to see if we're ready to vote on these minutes and get them published as soon as possible.
I move to accept meeting notes.
Okay, we have a motion from Brian to accept all 5 of those. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Andrew. Any discussion?
We're going to do them all together? Or one at a time?
That was the motion and the second.
Okay.
If no discussion,
I only feel comfortable voting on the meetings that I attended.
Exactly. Yeah, can we do it by warrant committee year again?
Like we did last time.
Nope, I think the bulk, we run into I actually had a discussion with Macy about this a while ago, about the historic minutes and the number of historic minutes that we are backlogged on. I think, given that we're trying and vote on the minutes more quickly and in a more timely fashion, that going forward, it makes sense to review them and vote on them with more deliberate consideration than the historical ones. Macy was trying to spare us from having to digest, I forgot what she said, but it was either 40 or 50 sets of minutes. I mean, it was a long series of historical minutes. And we can either leave them in perpetuity or leave them to the one or none of the current committee members that can vote on them. I would advocate that we just adopt all the historical ones, go clean slate, and be more deliberate about the ones going forward. Given that I was only present for the May 7th,
okay.
24. Actually, I wasn't even around for that one, and the only one of the 5 sets of minutes. So
Okay. We have a motion, we have a second.
We can do it by sets if members are more comfortable. So we can start with August 11th of 2025. That's the most recent one.
Brian and Andrew, are you okay with your motion and second being split up into 5?
Yes.
Okay,
No, but yes.
let's do it. All right, Macy, do you want to tell us what we're voting on, and then Karen, you can call the vote?
I am requesting a vote of approval for the August 11th, 2025 minutes.
Okay, we ready? Macy?
Yeah.
Elaine?
Yes.
Lorraine?
Yes.
Larry?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes?
Julia?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Lee Michael?
Yes.
Ron?
Abstain.
Nicholas?
Yes.
Cecile?
Yes.
And Jay?
Abstain.
Okay, the motion carries.
Can I make a motion that we do the other 4 together?
Those
It's
need
fine
to
with
be
me,
divided
yeah.
up too.
Pardon me?
Those need to be divided up
Oh, they
too.
do? There are some people here who could, okay.
I mean, I'm
Can I
gonna,
ask a question? On those, there's only 3 people that were here then on this meeting, right? You 3, I think.
Yes.
I don't think anybody else.
Which
But
is,
we were not here on the 5-1 and 5-2, 23.
Ooh, and I usually abstain. All right,
which is,
Rock, paper, scissors.
no, which is why I think we should
Yeah.
clean slate those,
Yeah.
get them over with, and for the record, their minutes, I would prefer you vote on them. Okay. I don't see any reason to abstain on voting on minutes.
My other thought is just instead of going through all the names, just your 3 names on those.
okay.
Just everybody else should
I don't know if that's
theoretically
legal.
abstain,
I don't know if
right?
that's legal.
we need to have a, we
I
need to
don't
have a
want to
quorum.
clean slate it because I want to abstain from 2023 and say yes to 2024. Like I wasn't part of the 2023 meetings, so I cannot.
Sorry, Julia. The difficulty with some of these 3, the last 4.
You cut out.
Still there?
There's nobody for the May 1st, 2023, nobody here was in that meeting.
I wasn't there.
These happened during town meeting, right before town
Oh,
meeting.
Jay was the only one there.
So, yeah, so that makes it difficult too, because there is no record of these meetings for me to go back on, to confirm. And Karen, is in the town meeting or preparing to participate or to report at the town meeting. So when we're at the high school, and I imagine these four meetings occurred, based on the high school, there's no one taking notes on them. So they're based on Karen's and others' collective memory. And I think that makes it difficult. So anyway, so that's, I just wanted to inform everyone of that. These are from the town meeting.
For efficiency's sake, can we vote on all 4 as a group?
I agree.
Second.
I know that goes against what we said a few
No,
minutes.
I mean, I understand in principle why you would want to do that, but from a practical standpoint, I think you should, if you want to split them up, fine, but
I'd like to do something. Okay.
I've got a question. What happens if you vote no on like a set of minutes?
That goes, in my opinion, that goes back to what I said a few minutes ago. If we vote no, nothing has happened. And then we will have to later vote on those minutes to approve them. Like not if you individually vote no, but if the body votes no, that doesn't mean the minutes get burned. That means later we'll have to come up and do it again.
And if we vote abstain, how many people need to vote? Just a majority of the people that actually vote?
Yeah, probably. We could do all 4 and I could be the only voter. All right. I hate to go back on what I said just 5 minutes ago, but I'd like to do all 4 as a batch at this point.
I'll second that.
If anyone feels the need to abstain, then. Okay. All right, Macy, can you remind us of the 4 we're voting on now?
Of course. May 7th, 2024, May 1st, 2023, May 2nd, 2023, and December 11th, 2023. And these all occurred in the basement of the high school, I imagine,
Okay.
prior to town meeting.
Thank you. Okay, Karen, can you call roll, please?
Macy,
Yeah.
Elaine,
Abstain.
Lorraine,
Abstain.
Larry,
Abstain.
Andrew,
Yes.
Julia,
Abstain.
Brian,
Abstain.
Lee Michael,
Yes.
Ron,
Abstain.
Nicholas,
Abstain.
Cecile,
Abstain.
and Jay.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you. We're putting the past behind us. Thank you.
There's more to come, don't worry, there'll be more next meeting.
Thank you, Macy.
And
Thank
thank you, Jay, for allowing me to detour. I'm gonna log off.
Okay. So if we
everyone.
could all mentally switch back, and this is a good time of transition. There were concerns about fines, and we've had Lorraine and Lee Michael look into fines. What are the fines we currently have? What might be reasonable? Would one of you like to take it away?
Lee Michael jumped into it and did a great job, so go for it.
Thanks, Lorraine. Yeah, I'll kick us off. I sent via email a document to everybody. Am I able to share right now, or do I need permission?
You should have permission to share.
All right. So, can you see the Milton fine analysis on the screen now?
Yep.
Yes.
Great. So I did use ChatGPT to put this together. I did spot check it many times in many different ways, so I'm fairly confident of the content here, but I just wanted to disclose that I used ChatGPT to analyze our bylaws and the bylaws of nearby towns. Quick reference, the big summary here at the top is that we kind of have two different approaches to fines. It's either something that starts low at around $25 and then escalates up to $100 or $200 after 3 violations. And then we have the track where it's basically just a $300 violation every day, every time a violation is assessed. And I didn't see a lot of things in here about people being able to appeal them or go through some other process. That's kind of why I said let's go and find if we can get other language out there somewhere, because I didn't see anyone else looking through these bylaws. Basically, if the town assesses a violation, I think you probably have to fight it in court. But anyway, so there's those 2 levels, starting at 25, 500, 100, or 200, and then the second level is pretty much $300 first offense, and then every offense thereafter, and every day is generally a offense. There are some slight nuances or tweaks that don't fit those 2, but for the most part, that is what most of our articles include. And in looking at neighboring towns, we are remarkably consistent with what those towns have for fines as well. 300 is a very popular number, and that gentle escalation from 25 to 50-ish to 100 is also pretty common. More common with things like animal control. That's where, or leash laws, or noise complaints, etc. That's where you get those $25 ones that start out. And then you can see the other ones listed here: general code, board of health, sewer, stormwater management, wetland, some zoning, and then down here, I think, oh no, that was it. And that was it. Those ones are all $300. This our noise ordinance one is a little bit different. Its first offense is $100, so that one was kind of an aberration from the rest of them. But in the back of the document here, you'll see what some other towns have done. Here's a whole section that compares other towns' animal control laws. You'll see, $50 first violation, 100 up to 150. That is pretty consistent. There's some other towns that have exactly what we have, but they're all kind of in the neighborhood. When you look at plastic bags, there's a tiny bit more variation. Newton has $200. Their fourth offense goes up to $300 a day, which is pretty steep. But a lot of them, those numbers escalate right up to around $200, $300 mark. For light trespass, I knew we were talking about that. I just happened to look up what some of the towns near us had, and several of them do have this up to $300 per violation. I think that most of them allow for remediation within the first 30 days, which is what the bylaw that we looked at. So no fine within the first 30 days, and then if you exceed that amount of time, you get assessed $300 for every day that the violation continues thereafter. And then there's just some additional research here that I'm not going to go into now, but I put this in here for the folks who are trying to be experts on the trespass law. So long story short, I was surprised at just how consistent our bylaws are with each other, with having those two different tracks, and how consistent we are with the towns around us. I kind of thought they would be more all over the place.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
So tying the discussions together, there was concerns about the fines in the light bylaw. Now we've seen what Lee Michael has. Thoughts, questions, comments? Yes, Julia.
I feel like all of the comments so far about the $300 violation has been that it seems like a lot. So I like the stepwise, first offense is X, second is Y, third is Z. That seems more reasonable and sort of fair to me. So those are my thoughts upon seeing the comparison data.
Which $300 fines?
If we're talking about the light trespass fines in particular. But I think whenever we've seen fines of $300, we have all felt, like a day, we have felt like that is a lot.
I think also, so from the research, it says up to 300 per violation. So maybe there's some decision making by whoever's running these programs for Boston, Cambridge, and Somerville. I think our proposed article just says 300 a day, every day. There's no perspective or judgment. It's just your violation after 30 days, you start tacking up that $300, and it doesn't say is to be assessed. It's just every single day, in theory, you owe $300. So, but we can talk to Ben. I think we can see.
I generally agree with the comments. I just want to point out that you're going to very quickly get to that $300 because if somebody, you get a warning or whatever, then you're still in violation 30 days later. So fine, assess a $25 fine. Then the day after that, so that's day 32 or whatever, the day after that, if the light still exists, you assess a $50 fine. And if the light still exists on the third day, you assess a $100 fine. So it's going to accelerate very fast is my point, because each subsequent day is a new violation.
Yep.
But I don't mind starting with a low number.
I agree with those comments, just to echo, and I think 300 is excessive. I think also, there are some appeals for some things here and there in the bylaws, but I don't know why there's not more, but I do think there should be an appeal process, because I don't know where this is going to go, but, people can be small sometimes, and I think there should be an appeal process to it. And this was brought up last time, and I wish they had added it. So my opinion.
Does everyone think that we've given Ron and Nick enough information to go out, get answers to these questions, and if they get satisfactory resolution, then we're okay? I mean, we're not committing to anything, but...
We're talking about the lighting bylaw now.
Sorry.
Okay, if we're going back to
on the
that,
lighting bylaw.
I think the biggest difference there is that there is a 30-day remediation period, as opposed to the stormwater violations.
Okay.
That's a fundamental difference to me. I think fines in general should be large enough to discourage someone, so that a wealthy person can't just pay it and ignore it and say it's worth it. Or there should be some deterrence. Do I think unleashed dogs should be fined $300? No way. I see some sort of stratification looking at these, and zoning is something pretty material as opposed to animal control. And Board of Health violations, I would hope that your Board of Health is setting a fine schedule large enough that restaurants are and other health-oriented, other commercial entities that have potential health impacts are incentivized not to do something. So I'm conflicted. As long as there's some degree of, I'm always of the thought that as long as there's some degree of discretion that is allowed to give reasonable flexibility to the fining authority, then I'm okay with it. And so I'm reading this, and it says up to $300 a day for stormwater violations. Like, what warrants $10 versus $300? I don't know, but
Only comment. If you look at the zoning, it's $300 per offense every 2 weeks, which is nothing.
Yep.
If you have a real zoning problem, that's $300 every 2 weeks, $600 a month. Probably not going to make a big impact, but who knows?
That's, I mean, the new people may not have heard my heartwarming, inspirational story, but Nick, I'm sure you're in town meeting for this. When I was a new town meeting member 10, 15 years ago, and they proposed for zoning violations $300 per day, and town meeting rose up and said, that's onerous. And then they came back a year later and said, okay, $300 per 14 days.
A fortnight.
For a fortnight. I didn't want to use the fancy British word. I think we've covered this issue.
Yeah.
And we
The
have
experts will take all your inputs into consideration.
Okay.
So, and an appeal process, which would be good, I think.
since we're talking about the lighting trespass, so one thing that I wanted to point out, there was a comment about the dark sky language. And for people that weren't here last term, warrant committee term, there were two separate articles proposed. One was a light trespass and one was a dark sky initiative. And so I'm mindful of Nick's comment regarding what right do we have legislating things that affect wildlife and trespass into U.S. waters as opposed to directly affecting taxpaying town members, townspeople.
they're gonna look into that.
So I appreciate that comment.
No, and I made note of what Lee Michael said about the dark sky stuff, and I'll take that on board, get some clarification, and come back.
Yeah, no, I know, so they commented on where that language came from, but does it make sense to have that language in this article? I'm not sure.
Okay.
So I agree with your
It's a great point.
discrepancy
Definitely
there.
look at it.
So-
Okay. So for the last item, or the last article on the agenda, is the sign bylaw, which we have a guest here to speak to us about that. Larry, your buddy dropped off. I don't know if you're in the room when...
Oh, yeah, well, you know, she has had some personal problems today, so she wasn't really able to attend.
Thank you. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello, good evening. Meredith Hall, the chairman of the planning board.
Okay.
Here to discuss our sign bylaw.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Hall. And as I think you've seen, we're doing things a little bit different than last year. Last year, we had you come in and do a very full presentation on all your bylaws for us. We were delegating that to our experts. And so if you could just maybe give us the quick highlights of what you're proposing, and then we can...
Sure, I always think it's good to start with the intent and the purpose of why we are here and we are suggesting this bylaw. So I'll just refer to that section to initiate the conversation. So the intent of this bylaw is it is recognized that signs perform an important functions in the community, which are essential for public safety, general welfare, such as communicating messages, providing information about goods and services available, and providing orientation. It is further recognized that because of their potential detrimental impact to the visual and perceptual environment, signs must be regulated in order to prevent hazards to vehicular and pedestrian traffic, prevent conditions which have a blighting influence and contribute to declining property values, provide for easy recognition and legibility of all permitted signs and other uses in the immediate vicinity, preserve the amenities and visual quality of the town and curb the deterioration of the community environment, and support business vitality by avoiding burdensome procedures and restrictions. It is the intent of this article to protect property values, create a more attractive business climate, enhance and protect the physical appearance of the community, and encourage the appropriate use of land. So, having said that, we have had a number of changes. We currently have a sign review committee in place, which Larry is part of and can speak to. But a lot of it, this was really the body of work that Tim Zwinski had prepared years ago, and it just had gotten sort of put aside and never really addressed. He actually wrote it when he was assistant town planner and was surprised it just never got put forth. And had been tabled. So this gives a much more clear, sort of like this, if you recall the site plan approval that was recently approved at town meeting, it gives a clear map for anyone who's putting a sign, what the application materials that need to be. These are currently the materials and the application process that the town has in place. So nothing is changing, nothing is, the application would go through the building department. The building department would then send it to the sign review committee, who does an excellent job. Many of them are architects or have design knowledge and understanding, and so really can interpret and work with whoever the business owner is to create something that would fit in with the character of the town while meeting the needs of what that business might need. So, and it also, this just clearly spells out whether it's residential district, because we have a lot of pre-existing non-conforming commercial properties, but they're in residential areas. The fruit center being one of them, different certain areas that are in residential districts, but they are commercial buildings. So this clearly lines up and lays out clear definitions and the process for a sign applicant to come in. And what it also does is we have a sign review handbook that's been given out, which is just ancient. It's not updated. And what's been happening is what is prohibited in the handbook is actually not in our bylaws. So this aligns what's in the handbook with what our bylaws state. So because there is an appeal process, we do allow that. This is, one of the changes was it had been going to the select board for the appeals process when years ago it was just suggested, and it just never happened, that because the zoning, any special permit appeal process goes to the ZBA, this aligns with what our special permit process is in all other zoning, would go to the ZBA. So that was just a small change. And then we made some of the timelines a little bit more lenient to allow the sign review committee to perform, to be able to do the approval. They can always approve it sooner, but sometimes what happens is somebody may not have understood what was required or what was allowed, and so they have to go back and make some changes, or there's some recommendations that the sign review committee will make. So they go back to their designer and come back, and so it takes another meeting to follow up. But usually it's within a meeting or two that the signs are approved. It's not a lengthy process. So, and sometimes if there are no sign applications, the sign review committee might not meet that month. So,
yeah.
And Larry can probably add more detail and help to answer some questions that you all may have. I did find a few in our updated version. There's a few Scribner periods that are missing. I've noted, but we'll read through that. But any questions that?
I guess now I'd like to turn to Larry. Sort of, when you were looking into this, when you were reading it over, when you're talking to Ms. Hall, what questions did you have? Or if you can turn your brain, you're a sign expert. You can turn your brain to the rest of us. What questions did you have, or what questions would you have had if you were in our shoes? And what did you learn about this?
The only questions I had, everything made, most of the time frame changes made a lot of sense to me, and a lot of most of the changes are things that are just making the bylaw, reflect what we actually do. Okay. So for example, I don't know, there was a thing in there about, we were appointed by the building commissioner, we're actually appointed by the select board, that sort of thing. And then, a lot of those things are corrected. That was all pretty minor, pretty fine. I was sort of wondering what the role of the planning department was, but then, I had a discussion with Meredith, and that all made sense. The planning department is sort of the arbiter of everything that comes through. The building commissioner and the planning department work together with the sign review committee to get these signs in front of us and things like that. The only open question that I had, which I wish I'd asked you last night, was it was the overlay districts. So there's some wording in there about if there's an overlay district that has its own sign bylaw, or not necessarily bylaw, but its own sign directives, or whatever. That supersedes our town bylaw then, I guess, right? I would think it would.
It's really being consistent with the sort of our goal, and I think we didn't say shall, I think we said should, probably, which is very different. So we are trying to guide them to follow. We've put in place design guidelines recently in the Milton Village overlay and the East Milton overlay. And within those, we had worked with our consultant and feedback from the community. And it's just guidelines to the types of signs. So it is still, it's encouraging them to look at those guidelines. But it's the sign review committee and the bylaw which supersedes.
Yeah. Okay.
They're guidelines, not, not necessarily requirements.
Yeah, bylaws or whatever. Yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly. And we just tried to give, some indications of what that they could look at those design guidelines.
Yeah.
And the other thing too, I just didn't mention is I did go through this very closely with John Zikowitz, who's the chairman, who's been on the sign review committee since the beginning, because he's seen the problems, and Larry's been on it for 10 years too, so very experienced. So to find out what are the issues and where do people, applicants get hung up, and so hopefully this is going to resolve those.
Yeah, I think it's great. Yeah.
Larry, can we step back just a minute to put yourself in the rest of our shoes? Can you give us the 2-minute version of what happens now if somebody, a business wants to put up a sign?
Sure. Yeah, no problem. So I actually wrote up a little summary that I sent to you guys about that too. It's okay. It was like a few hours before the meeting. So, an applicant submits a sign application to the building commissioner. The building commissioner will forward it to the sign review committee, and then we'll schedule a review using our monthly meeting. If all the design materials are required, there's a lot of specific materials that they have to include, the size of the sign, a plan layout, they have to have a plan layout where the sign's going to be, things like that, what the materials they're going to use. If that's all included, then they'll forward it to the sign review committee. We'll meet. If it conforms with the sign bylaws, then we generally, it's usually a pretty quick meeting. Occasionally, we'll make some aesthetic recommendations, but those aren't binding. It's just sort of a recommendation. Some of the guys are pretty good. As Meredith said, they're architects. We had a sign guy for a while. He was great. But those aren't binding, so they can take it or leave it, take our recommendations or leave it. If there's any issues with the sign, like it's not conforming somehow, we may make recommendations for them to make some changes. And then if that happens, they take it back and then resubmit at a later date to the sign review committee. So we can either approve a sign conditionally, say if you make these changes, you agree to make these changes and resubmit your application, we'll approve it at a later date. and then we have to get back together and approve it at that point. If we can also reject a sign, and then it's pretty much the same process. They can either come back, they can also appeal it. They can go to the Zoning Board of Appeals if they want to appeal our decision. In which case, the Zoning Board of Appeals can overrule essentially our decision, which is usually, in some cases, overruling the sign bylaw, which is how you wind up with things like the old Sleepy's mattress sign, which is something else now. I mean, that's a non-conforming sign that gets approved every time it comes up. And trying to think what else. Maybe some of the gas stations. There's some non-conforming signs around. So that's basically the process.
And I know I'm maybe asking a big question, asking you to narrow it down, but so what changes does this, what changes are we talking about?
The changes are essentially timeframes. So in some cases, we have in the bylaw listed 14 days for approval, 30 days for approval. In most cases, we've increased those to a more reasonable timeline. Or I'm sorry, not we, and Meredith has, or the planning board has increased those to a more reasonable time. That's the biggest changes. There's some corrections, like I said, about the select board appoints the sign review committee and not the building commissioner. And then there was the, let's see here. And then the business about the overlay districts was good. That's about the, if there's guidelines for the overlay districts, they weren't included in the original bylaw. So that clarifies that. And then there's some clarification about the internally lit signs. So we have a lot of discussions about internally lit signs in the sign review committee, as you guys can imagine. And the wording is clarified in the article about what sort of internally lit signs internally lit signs are generally never allowed.
What was that? What type of sign?
Internally lit. So think like a LED or like a neon. I mean, nobody uses neon anymore, but like a neon sign from the 70s.
Yeah.
We allow lit signs, but they have to be externally lit, like say from gooseneck lighting or something like that, or halo lit, which means that the light comes around the words. It also clarifies that illuminated signs require a dimmer switch. That's something that we've brought up in many of these sign review committee meetings, and now it's codified into law, which is great.
Dimmer switch?
It means that the lights can be dimmed late at night if they need to. So if the light needs to be on at all times, which occasionally they do, then it needs to be on a dimmer.
I mean, they can be dimmed, but if I'm the business owner, I would just choose not to. You're saying they're required to?
Yeah. I mean, well, actually, no, the bylaw just says that it requires that they have the ability to be dimmed. It doesn't say that they actually have to. I guess I'd have to look at that. Yep.
That was a request by John. He said sometimes you don't realize how bright, depending on where, in context to relationship to other properties. So it might be, I'll just use the example of Elliott Physical Therapy. If they had if they had an internally lit sign that came on and the neighbors were really, were upset about it, going back to all the light trespass, if it was an issue, they would have the capability to keep that sign, not have to remove it, but they could just reduce the brightness of it. Because sometimes you don't know until it's actually installed how bright it's going to be.
Okay.
Right. There's another one too, murals, works of art, things like that, that are painted on the side of buildings, like the mural on the, what's that?
Tucker.
Oh,
I was thinking Tucker, but...
Yeah, I guess. Is there a mural at Tucker?
It's new.
Oh.
Go see it.
I probably should have had it approved.
Is it a sign? Art. Sorry, I'm getting off topic. Mural, okay.
Yeah. So murals, require approval from the sign review committee, which we've never really been clear about that before in the old bylaw. So that's been included. And then there's also an issue with signs painted on windows. People often come to the sign review committee thinking that signs painted on windows don't count, or they can paint whatever they want on their windows because it doesn't count towards the overall square footage. So we clarified that. I keep saying we. I'm sorry, Meredith. It's you guys clarified.
Okay, I was just going to ask you, are you on the sign review?
I am on the sign review committee.
You are?
I do attend some of the meetings because it's funny, people will call the planning board and say, how did that sign go up? Like why did that, certain sign and, how did that get through? And because it wasn't clear in the bylaws sometimes and it gets appealed. So some things have gone through, but.
Yeah.
But they do a great job, the design review committee.
Except for the sleepy sign, man, we just can't get rid of that thing. It just hangs around
Well,
for
this
year
will
after year.
help, this will help
Yeah, hopefully.
if they change.
The exceptions are helpful to read, because I had a question about like town politics signs, and every couple months you see a bunch of signs. But, so you can put it on the sidewalk, because I thought you can't put signs on the grass of the sidewalk, but it says signs may be erected in town's right-of-way by a homeowner in front of his or her own property, provided it doesn't protrude into public walkway or roadway. Placement doesn't damage plantings, blah, 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 blah. So you're allowed to put signs on
Not
that grass
public-
area?
On private property,
On your own
but
property.
it has to be on your own property. So
Got
it
it.
can't be on town
Right.
land.
So that portion of grass in front of my house, between the road and the sidewalk, is that mine or is that the town?
That's typically the town's.
Oh, really? I'm starting
You're
to stop.
responsible
But
for
you're
maintaining
responsible,
it.
you're responsible
Yeah.
for maintaining
For
it.
maintaining it,
It's
right.
called the devil's strip.
Yeah. Got it.
Well, then, what does this mean? It says signs may be erected in the town's right-of-way, provided, blah, blah, blah.
The
blah,
town
blah.
doesn't own the right of way. The town has access to the land, but the land is still owned by the landowner. So it's private property, but the town has the right of way over it, I think is what that's saying.
Okay, which is different than the other side of the sidewalk.
I had a question, and I was looking particularly at the prohibited signs. I was trying to think of what those meant, and I was actually had to Google what open-faced channel letters are. But the one that was confusing to me, and trying to understand the logic, and also triggered another question, was 9 window signs which cover more than 25% of the window, or which obstruct the middle third of the window or door such that eye level view through the window is blocked. And it posed 2 questions for me. One is, what's the difference between a sign and an advertising? And 2, why does it matter that it's, like, I'm an advertising agency and I want
Even all
the name of the agency across the entire door. Like, why can't I have that there? And
Because it's
what?
visually not
Appealing,
please, it's,
yeah.
yeah, it detracts from the look of a community to have big, we had all of our windows covered, because if you could do it, then everybody could do it, and it's consistent, that you wouldn't want to cover your windows completely.
Yeah, but what's the difference between that and a painted solid door with the name of the entity written across the middle third? I mean,
So you were asking if you, are you saying you want a sign across like the entire front of your building?
no, a door. Yeah, it says a window or door.
Where are you
And-
seeing this?
More than 25% of the window, or which obstruct the middle third of the window or door. That eye level view through the
Okay.
window is blocked. I understand what you're saying, and I'm trying to understand what this is saying. And so if I have the name of my business through the middle third of a glass door, for example, and is blocking view through at eye level, then that's prohibited?
Are you talking about the signs erected to obstruct any door? X, is that the one? 10?
9.
I guess, can I jump in here? We're never going to find a perfect balance.
No, I'm trying to understand what this is actually saying.
No, I'm sorry, but, okay, I'll let you go, but then I sort of want to.
It's this, I mean, it's aesthetics. You know, I mean, you could ask the same question, why don't we allow internally lit signs? LEDs, many other towns allow internally lit signs, but we here in Milton don't. You know, it's aesthetics.
So, and a political sign can't be more than 25% of, like if I wanted to advocate for Jay and Jay's running for some office, it can't be more than 25% of the window. I can't have a life-size Jay that,
Yeah, I mean, No, I mean, you'd be doing, you're just doing us a favor, not having a life-size J in your window.
No, and I'm not trying to be facetious, I'm trying to.
I know what you mean.
Really trying to understand that one.
It's a weird one, I know, now that I think about it, because if you think of a typical political sign, it's of a certain size. If you were to put that in your window, it would be more than 25% of the window.
And so that would be in violation of?
Yeah, I mean, according to the bylaw as written. I mean, that's the original bylaw from 2002.
Yeah, so I'm reading things like this, and I feel like I understand what it means to maintain an aesthetic of a town, and this borders on overreach from my perspective. And I'll defer to experts to sort of draw a line somewhere, but I'm trying to make sure that I have an understanding of this clearly to figure out whether it makes sense or not. So
I mean, the nice thing about this is that we do have the appeal process here. Unlike some of the other bylaws, we have an appeal process here. You can go to the Zoning Board of Appeals and say, make a really good case for why you want your life-size J picture.
Yeah, but I want to put up a simple.
No, I know what you mean.
In my place of business, I shouldn't have to appeal it because it's not a reasonable standard.
Yeah, I'd sort of like to jump in. I mean, we have multiple pages of very interesting things, and we could have lots of very interesting discussions. What I'm going for with this process, and I won't be perfect, is to sort of minimize the discussions around this table of, this sentence, this paragraph. I'm hoping that those sorts of conversations can go through Larry and Macy, who are the experts on this, get you answers.
Yeah.
It's going to be a balancing act between we want to be thorough so we can present something thorough to town meeting, but we could all find interesting things here that lead to interesting discussions, but we have a limited amount of time.
But
that's true.
So,
how do I get to the point where I pose that question if I don't really understand what the language is here? And so I'm getting clarification on that now, and
okay.
I think that's a problem with this half-hour artificial time block.
It's not perfect. You're right.
Some articles require far more time than others, as we're discovering, and so.
You're right. It's going to be a balancing act. So that's why I don't like cutting people off, but I'm just trying to encourage. That's a good question. Can you bring that to Larry and Macy?
Yeah.
Get answers, and then we can
let me
come
write
back
that
with
down.
it.
Maybe we could ask, because Larry and we could ask John, and I can ask John. I don't think there's ever been a problem with that in our bylaws. I've never heard of it being an issue for a business owner or a homeowner.
I've never had that come up, no.
Yeah. I think it's a valid question. I'm just trying
Yeah,
to
but I appreciate,
Yeah.
move more efficiently.
But I mean, it's good that you bring that up. It kind of gives us a taste of what we're going to face at town meeting,
Absolutely. We don't
That's
want
kind of the goal here.
We don't want to just all vote yes around here and then get blindsided at town meeting.
Yeah.
So that's absolutely.
I think we're probably going to have a lot
So
of discussions like that.
I guess I would open it up to the rest of the group and encourage sort of what I said at the beginning. Can you raise questions, even if there aren't going to be answers to those questions? What questions are you going to have such that if Larry and Macy and Ms. Hall come back in 3 weeks, we've all got the answers to all of our questions? So are there other questions that could be raised, can be raised now, can be raised later with emails to Larry and Macy? Ms. Hall?
I just was going to add one thing too. I didn't mention that Kathleen O'Donnell did come to one of our meetings when we were discussing this, and she did think that this is the proper process for the appeals. And now she's currently the chair of the ZBA. So she thought this would be proper procedure. And I also talked to Katie Conlon, who was very involved with this as a select board member, and she also felt that this was a better process.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. I agree, personally. But yeah.
And the only thing that's difficult about this whole article for me, it's really dense. And so trying to figure out what does it mean in practice?
And that's, again, I don't know if it's the perfect solution, but that's why I wanted two people to really dive into it. We've got one of our lawyers in it and our sign expert. They're diving into this super deep. And that's not to discourage anyone else from diving into it. But
I'll have another discussion with Macy about it. I haven't actually talked to her about it, but
Okay,
You're right.
yeah.
Going over it with a lawyer would be a good idea.
Yeah, clearly, I mean, Ms. Hall said there are
Yeah.
some, Scrivener's errors to check and,
And the other thing is, we also are circulating a copy with the building department, because it is sort of a dance between the planning board, the planning department, and the building department and the sign review committee, and how they work together very well with this. But one of the things that we've also, we've wanted to review is there's, towards the end, an insurance policy requirement for a liability, just above 13, that last paragraph. We're not sure, we wanted to get legal counsel's opinion on that.
Okay.
So that was something that we're
Might take a
waiting.
little while.
We kept it in there, but we're waiting to hear on that. The liability insurance, Macy may want to weigh in on that. We also just had a discussion on keeping the bed and breakfast under special provisions 13. We thought, we're putting it in, we do not allow currently bed and breakfasts in Milton, but should we ever decide as a town that we would want one, the language would be in there, and we wouldn't have to go back to town meeting for it, so.
Is there a, no, that's a different subject. Never mind. I was going to ask are you guys working on the short-term rental?
In Airbnb, we actually, it's prohibited currently in our current zoning, that we don't allow short-term rentals, anything less than 30 days.
Yeah. I always hate to cut off conversation, but it's
Yeah.
9:30.
No, that's fine.
So, yeah, so we were thinking about it, but we don't think it's necessary, so.
Okay.
So on this article, are there other questions, concerns? Again, I'm sort of hoping questions come up even if answers aren't coming back right now. More questions, more concerns people would like to raise to Larry or Ms. Hall? If not, I encourage people to take a look at it. Sort of, we'll meet and talk about this again. And I'm not saying we're not allowed to have questions next time we meet, but it's a lot better if we get the questions out between now and then. Questions, answers, and then we are ready to go next time we meet, which will probably be 3 weeks from now.
Yeah.
So Jay, if we do have questions, should we just email it directly?
Yes.
Yeah, you can email me directly.
To any of the experts? Not just
Yes.
that. Okay.
Yes. Email them directly. Feel free to copy me, but if you don't want to, that's fine too.
So just out of curiosity, is Milton Fuel sign, is that in or out of compliance?
Milton Fuel, which one is that?
The gas station
Near Ullin Rink, right?
right
Narrow
there,
it down.
it's lit. The one by the cleaners and the fruit center?
Oh, East Milton.
That was a very controversial sign. So there's a
No, it's not.
backstory. That was an appeal. That was
Yeah.
on appeal. It was denied, I believe, and the neighbors were really upset about it. But they came together and there was some negotiation, and it ultimately was allowed. And
So it's a lit sign, backlit sign, but that would be prohibited without an appeal by this language, is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
internally lit,
Yeah.
yeah.
Most of the gas stations go through that appeal process.
Okay.
Brian?
I have a question. Thinking, first subject was climate control. Is there any way to put any lighting on the signs that they have to be LED? Or,
Yeah. That's good. That's a good point.
It's like a takeaway.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Okay.
or something like that?
There's other
It's a good suggestion. Yeah.
Rather than a specific technology, I'd recommend energy efficient if you wanted to go down there.
Oh, yeah, good point.
LED may be here for another month, who knows?
Okay. I don't know if there's more discussion about the sign review bylaw. That takes us to the end of our agenda. I said other fall town meeting articles, thinking if some of these dropped off, we might have other things to talk about, but no. So that brings us to the end of the agenda. So next week is Labor Day. The week after that is going to be our summit where we'll sort of get oriented. I'll be planning that over the next 2 weeks. Nothing like a deadline to make things happen. I think it's going to be in the new old fire station.
Oh, cool.
Conference room. Just change of pace. Feels like we're on a vacation. So that'll be the Monday and Tuesday following Labor Day.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Aside from that, I believe it's time to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Can I ask one question? Can you send out a schedule for the rest of the year, you think? on,
That sounds like an ambitious project.
yeah, so kind of can plan.
Yeah.
Well, didn't we say every other?
We did,
every
but
other
does,
week,
like
then I've
holiday
already-
issues or anything? I don't know.
I don't know.
Or
And
even-
I've already said in September, we're gonna have to break that.
Just through the end of October, because that's when that town meeting is, right? Late October?
Yeah,
be great.
yeah, I sketched out a plan through the end of September last week, and it's pretty much, we take off Labor Day and then the next 3 weeks. But yeah, okay. Feel free to remind me if you don't see that in a couple of days, which you probably won't.
Is the summit a potluck?
That's a good, not as a meal, but maybe as snacks.
I'll just put that
Yeah,
out there for
yeah.
you.
Oh, does it have to be televised? Oh, wow.
No, it
It
doesn't.
doesn't have to be televised?
It doesn't.
Okay.
No, that way we can ask all the dumb questions we have.
Yeah, I know.
It's an open meeting. Anyone can walk by and watch us ask dumb questions. Yeah. Okay, so do I have a motion to adjourn? Lee Michael, we're saying adjourn?
Yep.
Okay. Great. Good night.
All right.
Thank you.